This is Hardy Brute, and today I'm going to be playing Chosen War. It's a pretty unique auto-battler, where you decide between two different races, and create a team before you go on your journey. So I chose the Flood Dragon. Each hero comes with a special ability, and I also chose the Behemoth as the tank. He's got a lot of life, and he also regenerates. The two other units I chose was the Sawfish, who has an area attack, and the Lionfish Archer, who will have a ranged attack in the back. So let's check it out. So this is the board state. You can set up your units however you like. When you right click, it'll separate them out into two even piles. So let's have the tanks in the front, the area attackers that are very quick moving on these sides, the archers in the back doing consistent damage, and put our hero in the very back because he moves very quickly and he's also melee. So that's just going to protect him. Our hero's special ability is that he summons a dragon. It only lasts 7 seconds, but it can act as a meat shield, or it can do a lot of damage just on its own. Each battle gives you 10 coins and 3 supplies. And this time we got buffs for a specific unit. Currently we're using the 9-headed serpent, so it'll make all of our serpents 1500 health higher from 7200. And it also gave us a free serpent. But our army size did increase to 1200. For every 500 total army, it cost you 1 supply per move. So now it's costing us 3, and we're only going to get 3 back. So at any point your entire team loses, or you don't have enough supplies to go from island to island, then you'll lose the run and you'll have to start all over. It seems like we are unlucky and we're fighting the other dragon hero. So if he summons his dragon before he dies, which he did, he's going to take out all of our shark troops. And now we're just left with our tanks and our archers. Which is pretty bad, because the dragon is OP for us, but he's even more OP for the enemy. We got to a slave island, which gives you free troops, but I think I'm going to stick with our current army, our cost of only 2, and sort of build up our supply bank. But let's use our dragon, who has an area effect attack, to take out all these guys' little troops. And we should be getting another passive here. The buffs usually affect a certain type of unit, like the soldiers, the hero, the cavalry, or a specific unit. Or it just is a general smaller buff like 5% for everything. But let's get the Firebats. It's a ranged unit, and he'll also give us 13 free Firebats as well. And they'll do 5 more damage. So all in all, it's a pretty good buff. And we could use some more ranged in the back. But we've increased our damage, and hopefully that'll keep our serpents alive longer. Because even that middle serpent doesn't have a full health bar. It's about 70%. The enemy has 4 catapults, although I think they're actually goblin launchers. So he launches goblins at our troops, which doesn't do a lot of damage, but it does often slow them down. So it's more of a CC unit. Knowing a unit's exact health can help you reposition them. There's some ways to heal them as well later on. But we got to another slave island, and we got some more Firebats. Which the Firebats are actually better than our archers right now. And I'd actually be happy to replace them entirely if we could. But let's go to our first market and trade island. Now let's combine the bats into one big ball, so we can separate them out evenly. And actually put them a bit closer than the archers, because their attack range is smaller, and I've noticed that they've been running forward a lot before they actually attack. But the enemy also has Firebats, and it has Riflemen, which is a high damage unit, but it has the negative of its bullets being blocked by other troops. So unlike our archers or the Firebats, they can't shoot through our giant behemoths. Within the shop, you can buy spells, you can buy units, and you can buy consumables. So let's get the Divine. It'll do 1500 damage to a single unit, and often you can take out the hero with it. Your hero will get 1 max health for each unit that dies around it. That's decent. The cannons will do more damage, but it'll also do more damage to your troops, so that's good and bad. So let's roll a bit. You can duplicate some troops, but only at 50% health. Your soldiers will perform a flash attack at twice their attack range, which sounds pretty cool. Reduce movement by 10%, but damage by 50%. I would like that if we get some more range stuff going on. can shield some units for 30% less damage. And you can increase the size and attack range of units for 30 seconds. All of our units can't be repelled. But because we only have 15 coins, I think I'm going to buy the spyglass. It'll show the islands around you, and we won't hit a dead end like we just did with the shop over here. Because now we have to pay 6 supply to get back on the correct path. And if our army was bigger, we'd either have to start letting some of them go, or we'd be trapped and unable to progress. But we have a lot of free damage now that we have the Divine, and we can have up to 3 spells, 3 skills, to increase that damage even further. We made it to the first Easter Island, which allows you to resurrect any troops that have passed on, but no matter what you resurrect, it always costs 20 coins, and there's a limit of only 500 army value. So for context, the behemoth, the giant snakes, they cost 200 supply, the sharks cost 30, the firebats were 15, and the archers are around 6. They also only resurrect with 60% health, so oftentimes unless they're archers or something in the back, they'll end up dying again. But they can keep you going for a little bit. Usually it's better to pick a buff that will give you some free units that you can transition into. Just like with this giant whale, he's also a behemoth in a tank, and his buff gives him more armor, and he supplies you with 1 free giant whale. So if our snakes got low or died off, we could always just use a different behemoth. But I think we have enough space for this whale right now. Our army's only 1460, so we're still at the 3 supply. We're not gaining or losing the supply. Which is good and bad. Because it means we can keep on going, but we can't also make any mistakes. Because we can only backtrack 1 time. We've only got 6 total supply right now. Every 10 moves gives you a negative buff. This one made our archers' armor weaker. All monsters resist far-off attacks. That's pretty good as well. Now all of our units will take 10% less damage from ranged attacks. Which is the main thing that does damage anyways. Melee is strong, but a lot of times it'll die before it gets there. The shell troops were the alternative to the lion archers that we could have picked at the start, but they're more of a defensive archer. Their attack range is smaller, and the buff they get makes it even smaller, but I think they start doing reflective damage or something like that, and I didn't really like that approach. I really just wanted a damage outlet. So I think we picked the better of the 2 archers. We got a consumable treasure map. You'll turn one of the islands around you into a treasure island, which will give you a bunch of free supply and coins. But it's completely random where it's going to appear. And it was even on an island that we hadn't seen yet. So luckily that actually showed us a possible path. But we are fighting the dragon hero again, which could be bad for us. And the Divine did not one-shot him, but he is pretty low now. But he did summon his dragon. Our middle behemoth, the snake, is very low. Yeah, he got taken out by the dragon. But I'm not sure I'm going to revive them. I may use a different unit. Well, let's get the rifleman buff. We'll get 16 free riflemen, and they'll attack a little bit faster than normal. And we can place those troops on the edge, so that hopefully they can attack without having to deal with the big behemoths in the middle. But there is an upgrade in the shop that lets the riflemen shoot through anything. There's quite a few passives and abilities that you can only acquire in the shop, kind of like these spells as well. But this is the archer hero, and he actually starts with that divine arrow. So if we'd gone humans and picked him, we could have started with that. But I don't think that would have made for a very strong start. Let's get another buff, and we can get the cannon buff, which will give us 3 free cannons, give them more health and more attack speed. So ideally I'd like to get a bunch of cannon and siege weapons, because they're some of the best range weapons in the game. They take up a lot of supply, they attack pretty slow, but they do big damage. I think the cannons can also do splash damage to your own troops, which could be a bad thing. But I'm not sure that holds true for the siege weapons. But there are some skills and things you can buy to make the splash damage go away. At least for your troops. So we defeated the dragon hero, got 50 coins and 10 supply. So now we're out of the danger zone, at least of being trapped somewhere. Could get the giant crocodile, he's also a behemoth. Or start doing the catapult dream. Explosive range is even bigger, so it does more area effect. Attacks a bit faster. And now our supply is up to 4 and 1800 army. Well, we got 2 quality ranged units, the cannons and the catapults. And we got the buff for them as well. And that's what I would like our endgame team to be, is a bunch of cannons, a bunch of catapults, and a rotation of behemoths to keep them all alive. Because the hardest part later on is maintaining your troops' health. Because as your army grows, so does the enemy's. And it's pretty common to even lose 1 behemoth per fight. And it becomes pretty hard to heal and maintain them. So I've not actually beaten this game before. I've only ever gotten to probably like an hour and a half into the game, and then you just slowly start to die. But I've explored quite a number of troops, looked at some of the skills and spells, so I think I have a stronger chance this time of actually making it to the end. Another thing about the hero though, because ours just died, is the unit will revive after every battle, and it's a free cost, so it doesn't cost any supply. And I'm going to start skipping ahead, showing you the buffs, the perks we get, but not necessarily showing you every single fight. So all of our monsters have 10% more damage, all of our monsters have 10% more life, and all of our monsters have 10% resistance to ranged attacks. So we found a lot of general buffs, which is really good in case you want to pivot or change our team. We got a negative for the soldiers, to make them slower, but we don't actually have any soldiers, so that negative doesn't even affect us. So that's probably one of the best ones we could have even rolled. We're down to 2 serpents. The whale is below half health, but he's supposed to heal when he chomps and eats the units, but I don't think that happens too often. At least not enough to maintain him. But let's get some more buffs. 10% more range resistance. Increase the cannon damage by 10%. And increase resist all by 5%. Our team hasn't changed too much since the last time we saw them. I did end up getting rid of the archers, because the supply cost was becoming 4, and we were losing more and more supply, to the point that it was going to become an issue. But we still have our cannons and siege tanks, and we've been able to keep the behemoths pretty healthy. So we got to a market. We got the Thunder spell, which is an area attack spell that does 250 damage. It's probably the strongest spell in the game, at least early on. Our riflemen will shoot through any target, that's perfect for our team. Our cannons will do more damage, but they'll also do more damage to us. I think it's time to get this as well. To negate those cannons, let's actually turn off friendly fire here. The hero heals 1% of his max HP, all of our units can't be repelled. The hero does an area effect damage based on his max HP. These are all fantastic, let's actually get all of these. It'll make our hero, who's always on the team, who's in every single fight, much more useful. And not just a dragon summoner. Let's buy some safety supplies so we don't randomly lose. But we started the game all the way over here to the left, and we've traveled all the way to the right here. And we've probably been to around 30 islands. We just got another negative buff. Our cannon's armor is reduced, which is pretty bad, but our cannons shouldn't be being damaged anyways, so that's not really a negative. So we now have 3 active spells that can be used in every single fight. Do some area damage, do some single target damage, and the dragon is amazing. The hero also heals, so he's more tanky, and he does extra damage just by standing there. So our team is looking pretty good. But let's increase all of our monsters' movement speed. Buy a spyglass. We don't have much gold from the last fights that we've done. Our last market was only 2 islands ago, and we haven't saved up much cash. But we did find the final island. So let's actually use the spyglass that we just got, and see the area around us. Remove the fog of war, and see if we can find the path to it. It doesn't look like the nearby islands connect to it directly, so we probably have to take a big loop to get to it. But there's also a teleportation zone, so there could be some hidden path that we don't know about. But I've never actually seen or made it to the final island. I wasn't even sure there was one that existed, to be honest. So now I'm feeling pretty good about this run. Especially since we know where the end is, we just have to get to it. So I'm going to focus on buying some more spyglasses, make sure to keep our supplies healthy, and try not to get trapped anywhere. Because I think our team is pretty strong, even though our whale seems like he's probably going to die next fight or two. But our snakeheads are pretty healthy, the hydras. And we get a free giant whale right after that fight in the slave island. That'll be perfect to replace our current guy. So on that note, let's buy a supply pack, just for emergencies. And let's also use the treasure map that we found recently. It turned one of the islands into a treasure island. And it turns out that it's an island 4 islands back that we've already been to. And there's no way we can make it there. So that is very unfortunate. But let's increase all of our monsters' movement speed, all of their resistances. We could also take cannon damage, but I think the resist is better, at least in the long run. Especially when the damage is still split between catapults and cannons, riflemen and firebats. So we're fighting the Sork hero, who has a ton of cavalry. But the Thunder spell just wiped them all out in one hit, that's why that spell is so strong. Let's make all of their resistances to physical attacks 10% stronger. And now we've made it to island, I believe, 40, since we have another debuff, reducing our hero's max life, which is pretty bad. But when every time you get to a market, you can spend 10 coins to remove any debuffs, which I have been doing whenever I can. So I think we've actually removed quite a bit of the debuffs that we have gotten. This guy's team is very similar to what we had early on. So our behemoths are going to take a lot of damage before we eat through their behemoths. But as soon as we break through, all of our siege cannons and area effects should just destroy the archers here. But yeah, we're taking a lot of damage just because this fight is taking a long time. It's the final behemoth. And our whale actually is doing better than our snakes. But as you can see, the snakes are finally jumping forward and doing that flash attack that we bought early on. It gets them within range to do a bit more damage. But let's increase all cannon damage. We could get goblin launchers, but I think I'm just going to take the catapults. Increase our number. This is a slave island, so we can get 4 of them for free. Our supplies hit 4. And I think it's time to get rid of probably the firebats. When you delete a unit, it is gone forever. So if you go back to a reviving island, they're not going to be there as a choice anymore. So there's definitely a risk to just getting rid of troops. But we're now at an army size of 1497, a supply cost of only 3, with a safety net of 3. And we got a few more catapults. So now we have a total of 8. So our damage should have gone up quite a bit. So let's create our wall of catapults down here. We're fighting against 3 behemoths with our 3 behemoths, but we have a big wall of damage behind them. Oh, and there's actually 6 behemoths on their team. And we're fighting the dragon hero. So let's use both our spells on him, try to take him out before he summons his dragon. Because we do have area damage. Nice, and we did get him. Our hero also got though. And there's a behemoth up top, taking out our rifleman. This is not good. Hopefully he won't make it to our siege tanks. Alright, he got taken out. That's good. But we lost some riflemen, and that's not good. But these fights get bigger and bigger and harder to maintain. But we would have lost even more if they had summoned their dragon. So let's increase everybody's health by 10%. We can buy 3 cannons to replace the units we lost, buy some emergency supplies, and recover our army a couple times. The recovery is not a full heal, it's usually around 25 or 30%. But let's buy a spyglass with our final cash, just so we don't get lost. And we're at a supply of 4, so let's actually get rid of all of our riflemen, and a single catapult. That'll get us back down to 1475, and we can continue on. To get the most out of the hourglass, I'd like to use it on a path that kind of forks, or we don't know the direction to go in anymore. We also revived one of our whales, and healed it at our last market, So now we have 4 behemoths, and just a row of cannons and catapults. The catapult's area damage should do really good against all these small troops here. And this is definitely more the tank hero. I think he buffs their troops as well. But this was a pretty easy fight for us. We've traveled a bit to the left. You can see the starting island, the treasure island that we made, and the final island on the right here. After traveling probably 4 more islands up to the left, we found the transmission triangle. So let's see where it takes us. And it puts us pretty close to the final island down here. Let's actually use a spyglass and see if we can find the path down there. We are very limited on supply though. We only have 2 with a cost of 4. But we do have 15 in our inventory. And it's actually a straight shot to the final island. There's going to be 8 moves. It's going to be 8 times 4. So it's going to cost us 32 total supplies. Including our supplies from our inventory, we have a total of 17 right now. But we'll be getting 3 back from each island, at least the first 7. So 17 plus 21, we'll have 38, and we'll just barely actually make it. So we were very lucky here to have the extra supplies because there is no market till the final island. And there's no backtracking because it's just as hard going backwards as it is to go forwards. So we got lucky here that we bought the extra supplies early on, because otherwise we'd have to make our army smaller and smaller to make each move, and we'd probably end up losing these fights that should be the hardest in the game right before the finish line, which would just feel awful. So we still have our 4 behemoths. We actually picked up a couple of the claim archers. We got some fire bats, and now we just have to survive to the final island. Because there's not a lot of healing along the way either. But he's kind of playing what we played early on. He's also the dragon hero. A lot of these shark troops, which are very good for progressing quickly island to island. But as you can see from his and ours, they're also very squishy, and one bad fight can make you lose all of them completely. So they're kind of high risk, high reward. But originally I had played with this mermaid hero instead of the dragon hero. She has the ability to shrink troops, lower their stats and attack range, which I thought was pretty strong, and it is a very strong ability. But the dragon is just a better one all around. I think he's a better hero too. Because the mermaid has ranged attacks, does some spells, but she doesn't really scale all that hard. She's kind of just a mediocre archer, or sorcerer. So we've got some big damage output, keeping our behemoths pretty healthy fight to fight. The whales are showing a bit of wear though. And we got 4 more fights to go to the boss. At our current reviving island, I did revive a behemoth that we had lost early on, and got rid of the firebats so that we still had 4 supply. Because I think tanks are the best thing to have at this point. Because our backline is insane. And our front line just needs to be a wall to slow down or stop the units completely. Because our damage output is very high. But if we lose any of our troops in the back, there'll be no way to replace them. So we got 2 buffs, increase the hero's life by 10%, and reduce their resistances to far off attacks as well. So we double buffed our hero here. And we've got 2 more fights to the end, with just enough supplies to barely make it. But our cannons and catapults do so much damage, at least to the non-behemoths, because a lot of times the behemoth have 6,000, 7,000 health, and they have a bunch of armor as well. And ours are even stronger because they have so many resistances from passives we picked. So the final island before the end is a reviving island. So we might as well revive everything that we can, spend the coins that we can't use anymore, and we have just enough supplies to get to the end, and we still have an extra 5 just in case. But let's check out the final end and see what happens. I've never made it this far in the game before. And of course we're fighting the dragon hero, who's going to take revenge on all the sharks that we just revived. He is definitely the shark's downfall, but we're also going to get revenge on his sharks for a change. And of course he summons his dragon, but our dragon's already decimating his troops. The hero's gone. His sharks are almost all the way gone, and the only thing he has left is the dragon, which timed out. So this game was pretty hectic. It was pretty complicated figuring out all the rules at the start, figuring out what the best uses for the troops were, what they could even do, and there's also a ton of luck involved. But I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you later.